So we have this story. It's from Western Standard. Now, I have to say, I'm not familiar with what Western Standard is. I've never read them before. And part of me wants to say, well, I don't know if I can trust this news outlet, but I got to be honest. When I read the mainstream media, I often know that I can't trust them. So I'll just say this. Take it with a grain of salt for what it is. This is what they're reporting. They're reporting that Alberta towing companies are rejecting requests to supply trucks to the RCMP. Quote, a lot of these smaller companies don't want to ruin their reputation in the communities they serve, so they don't want to get involved. I mean, that sounds completely correct and reasonable. I mean, imagine you have a small business. You're a tow truck driver. You know everyone loves the truckers, and the police are like, go tow. You're going to be like, no way.
And if you read down in the story, it does say that they actually were calling the tow truck companies directly to get quotes from them, and that they do have a few listed. You know, they said they talked to some people out of the Calgary area, and they've got names and specifics involved in this. So that it seems like pretty good reporting. Yeah. But it's the same idea that, look, these guys are in the Calgary area, these tow truck companies, and they're saying, look, we work with the trucking industry on a regular basis, right? You're asking us essentially to go after our own customers and our friends and our partners and our B2B contracts that we've got, and that we would obviously relationships that we don't want to have, to injure. And so we're not going to take this work, and we just don't want to get involved. And, the Mounties are saying, come and get them. So then the Mounties are going to turn around and say, well, wait a minute, what do we do? Like, how do we get rid of all the trucks? Even if they go in, certainly they can arrest all the truckers, but that wouldn't
move the trucks.
You might just scooting out of here.
You need the truckers to move the trucks.
Right, you need the truckers, right. They've got, the keys, and I don't even know if the Mounties, do they have CDLs? Can they drive those trucks? Do they have that's actually one of the beautiful things about the trucker protest, right? Because, the logistics are, this is what they always say, is that amateurs talk strategy, professionals talk logistics. Think about it, right? Actually think through this. What if you wanted to shut down these protests logistically? How would you do it?
Well, that's the beauty of these protests.
Right. You actually can.
I mean, I was mentioning this the other day. If the protest is literally everyone says, let's go drive downtown, no one's broken any laws. So sure, you've got these big rigs that are pulling into the city and they're honking their horns. But if the cop walks up to one of these rigs, say like in Ottawa, who's honking the horn, or who's on the highway, and they say, hey, everyone's got to get out of here. You got to move. Be like, buddy, I'm not here with the convoy. I'm just driving my truck. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
Yeah. Your intent is within your brain.
You've illegally parked your truck?
Yeah. No, I mean, if they all go to downtown Ottawa and they're all and the city's gridlocked, the cops can walk up to you and say, move your car. I'm like, I want to. And they're like, no more protesting. I'm not protesting. I'm just driving my car. We're stuck.
Also, the fact that truckers have this kind of power when they protested, and power that we never considered. I mean, so we all understand that they deliver the food to us. They're incredibly important. But everything you're mentioning about the fact that you couldn't tow them, Tim, what you're saying about the fact that the police could never really enforce a suppression of their protest because you can't determine intention in that way. It just goes to show that for all the leverage that they've had, the fact that this is the first time that they're actually speaking out and having a protest of this sort really speaks A, to their collective character, and B, to the fact that they're probably right about this. This isn't a group of people that's constantly fretting and trying to get their way. This is a serious issue, and they're saying, can we please be taken seriously as valued members of society and be allowed to determine what is put into our own bodies?
I'll tell you this. This is so it's a brilliant protest, the Trigger Convoy. They're going about it very, very smart, tactfully. There's a lot truckers could do to completely shut down a country.
Yes.
And they're not doing it because that would probably piss off too many regular people. Imagine if on all of the 2-lane highways across the United States, 2 truckers just went 20 miles under the speed limit and drove side by side.
Yep.
Just jamming up every interstate across the country, and it would only take a couple hundred trucks to do it. Now imagine if you had 50,000 truckers across the U.S. who all decided, just the 2 of us right now in this spot are gonna cause a major traffic jam.
Tim, they're going to accuse you of inciting violence now in the media
for saying that
some truckers going to do this. I'm kidding.
No. Truckers do this in protest. I'm saying if they wanted to go to a larger scale, they could, and they're choosing not to. Mm-hmm. They're just in a big convoy showing everybody that they support a cause, they oppose the mandates.
Yeah.
Imagine if they actually tried to disrupt trade. Imagine how insane. First of all, imagine if they just said, I'm not driving today, so nobody brings food, if they did a general strike. Imagine if they were like, I'll drive, but we're going to drive real slow. There's so much they could do. They're choosing not to do.
Well, and think about too, and Trudeau even has, I found his tweet the other day, he had hashtag thank a trucker the other day, because so think about it. All of the blue city leftists that have been supporting lockdown policies for all of this time, because they've got their sinecures, they're making their money, right? They're all still getting paid for sitting at home doing nothing. They're doing Uber Eats. They're getting their Netflix. The reason that they have supplies, their entire lifestyle was upheld that entire time simply because, to your point, truckers never went off the job. Yeah. Truckers never stopped working. Truckers are literally essential workers, right? There's this whole, I don't even know who it was that came in and said, oh, the news media is essential. Really? I don't think the news media is essential workers.
No, not even
right?
remotely.
No, truckers, yes, absolutely an essential job.
Well, hold on. No.
And it's those same, to end my point,
journalists,
it's those same exact people who are attacking the very people that allowed you to be able to live through those lockdowns when you were living lives of luxury for an entire year.
I got to push back. Yeah. Journalists are essential workers, but we don't have any is the problem. We have like a small handful in this country. Yeah. So when, CNN is like, we're essential workers, I'm like, shut your mouth. No, you're not. Yeah. When you have the small handful of actual reporters, people like Matt Taibbi, for instance, and what Rebel News is doing there on the ground, that's essential reporting. But CNN's panels about Donald Trump during COVID, please.
These truckers in Canada actually remember not long ago we had the Southwest pilots calling sick, canceling thousands of flights.
Yeah, that's right.
It's their peaceful way to also protest.
But this is interesting. I actually talked to a pilot to understand, because the media said there's no sick out, it's fake news. So I talked to a pilot on the phone and he said there is no sick out. There is no protest. It's worse than that. What had happened was the mandates had stressed the workforce to the point where they were just individually saying, I'm going to call in sick today.
Wow.
So it wasn't like anyone organized anything. What I was being told by this guy was like, listen, the idea that there's an organized protest means that there's a lot of people who are just following the leader. But this is actually grassroots. When they announced the vaccine mandates, a lot of employees just said, okay, I'm going to use up what sick time I have left and I'm done. So all of these people calling in sick and disrupting everything, well, the media was correct. It wasn't a mass protest. It was worse. But the system was collapsing.
Yeah, it could be individual just to start to resist and stress out. Just like, I just don't feel like going to work anymore, you know? Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. We have so many people like that in this country. Once they had enough of the COVID, 2 years of shutdown, rise of tyranny, and the people, it's like, this is not the American we know about. And now what's going on also in school, shut down schools, parents cannot go to work, learning stuff that they don't approve online, and tell parents you could be potentially domestic terrorist. People are fed up. People are fed up.
Yeah. One thing that's actually going, I think, to be an unintended consequence of this is that truckers all of a sudden just found out how important they are.
That's what I'm saying.
The next level. So you're going to see, by the way, a lot of the, if there's collective bargaining that goes on, they're going to be getting paid. And you're going to see, I do think you're going to see a lot of people now looking out at this and saying, you know what? That doesn't actually look like a bad life, right? You don't need you don't need to go to college. You don't need to get massively in debt. You go get your CDL, which you can study for it. You can get it. You learn the basic mechanics of being able to operate a big rig. You go out there, and it basically is, if you are willing to spend that much time on the road, but hey, you get to listen to long form podcasts like Timcast IRL
while you're driving your truck,
and others while you're driving the truck, and you get to see tons of parts of the country, and you get to make bank. We actually have a friend who immigrated here on the green card lottery from Eastern Europe, came to the U.S. Literally, I picked him up at Dulles Airport, him and his wife, they had 2 suitcases with them. But he was a commercial truck driver back home, learned enough English to be able to pass the test. Within 5 years, he owns 2 of his own trucks now, owns a home. He's been driving. His wife's English was better than his, so she's a dispatcher, and he's been to like all 50 states already.
Yeah, well,
with the exception, 49, not Hawaii yet.
So one thing I was sort of touching on and wanted to get into a little bit here is the fact that for as unbelievably powerful and important truckers are as a collective group, the fact that we have not heard as much from them as a force as you tend to hear from other unions and worker organizations and groups of people in this country. And I don't know that it's so much the case that truckers just realized how important they are now. I think they've known, but this is one of the professions where people still genuinely care about the contribution they're making to society rather than just what they're taking home in terms of money. And also, I have to say this, another reason why I do genuinely believe that they care about what they're doing, they care about what they're providing, and they tend to be more down-to-earth people, is because this is one of the few professions where you can support a family that does not require a college education.
Right.
And that means these people are not going off to these institutions to be brainwashed with all these ridiculous ideas and coming out as communists.
And look at how the establishment left smears and insults people who don't have college degrees.
Yeah.
This condescension, this elitism, it's smarmy, it's gross, and it shows their disdain for working class people.
Exactly.
There's a comic that's funny. It's from Stone Toss, and I love how the left really, really despises Stone Toss. I don't know much about him other than there's comics on the internet, and one's good, and it's a leftist being like, the workers of the world, workers of the world unite, and then it's a right wing guy, and he's wearing a cross, and he's like, all right, I'm in, and then the leftist is like, no, thanks, not you. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like we support the work. This is, by the way, where you get. Marxist Leninism comes out of Marxism, and then eventually Maoism came out of that because the problem that Lenin realized and Trotsky early on was that the workers just weren't revolting against the government the way that Marx had intended for them to do with historic progression. And so the realization that Lenin had was that Marx missed something, and that you need this revolutionary vanguard that can lead them through. And I'm actually reading, about halfway done, Pyotr Wrangel's Always with Honor. Now, he was the leader of the White Army in the Russian Civil War. So, my background's more in China, Chinese Civil War, Cultural Revolution. But I said, you know what? Russia's actually where it happened first. And so Mystery Grove Publishing is doing their book. They're bringing, it's actually his autobiography, his memoirs that have come forward. And it's amazing, number one, because he's a great writer. It's just, he's really good at writing, giving a narrative. But also he explains that the Bolsheviks of their time, it was exactly the same as what we're living through now. So exactly the same.
Yeah, I want to add something people might not know. Workers' rule sounds great, the proletarian rule. But if you grew up in China like I did, when you actually a worker's family, you have least amount of food rationing coupons, you live in a primitive conditions, and you always looked down on. I have literally working parents. I grew up in that neighborhood. Everybody looked down on me because I'm a daughter of illiterate workers' parents, and we were starving. And then later, once communists take over, the workers cannot unionize. There's no independent unions in China because you have to have a Communist Party committee to supervise your workers' organizations. So you lose your workers' rights.
Yep.
So people cannot buy into that.
Yeah, you go, but I wanted to ask Lily a question in a moment.
There's a viral video on Reddit right now because on Reddit, a whole bunch of leftist extremist forums are becoming increasingly popular, like Late Stage Capitalism, Anti-Work, Work Reform. They're overtly communist, but there's a video going viral of a guy explaining how capitalism is modern slavery. And it's one of the most... I don't know if this guy, he's got a podcast where he talks about capitalism being evil. I don't know if he's just an evil guy who's lying to seize power. He wants to convince people to support a cult ideology, or if he's just really dumb. But he's like, in capitalism, you will never be paid what you're worth. That's a myth. You have to be paid less than you produce for the employer, who is your feudal lord, who takes the excess of your labor and steals it. And I'm just like, and you can choose to quit, and then you can choose to start your own business. And then you can become a lord, whereas in feudalism, you couldn't. Whereas in these other countries with slavery, you couldn't just leave that position.
But this is the essential link between communism and capitalism that nobody likes to discuss, because both are two sides of the same coin of materialism. And I know where that I'm getting at from this, is that if you are basing your entire system around material goods and material wealth, then you're going to find one system or another that supports it or supports the reallocation of it in terms of socialism. Whereas if you look at capitalism as a tool, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, we like free enterprise, right? We want free enterprise, but that doesn't mean that the economy, the needs of the economy, the needs of the GDP should come at should be given priority over the needs of families or over the needs of people that actually live in these communities. That's why our country has been hollowed out the way it's been, because of this merger between us and the CCP that's been going on for 30 years. That's why the jobs have been shipped overseas. And there was someone on a podcast recently who was saying that it's actually a good thing that American jobs were all shipped over to China and all of the wealth was shipped over to China. And that's ridiculous, because what that did was it empowered the CCP. It funded the growth of the Chinese military through American FDI. That's where this is going. We have underwritten it. And Lily, you and I were talking earlier about how the city of Shanghai, that, the area across the river, Pudong, has gone in 30 years from being, farmland into one of the most built up financial capitals of the world. Well, guess what? To the American people, you paid for that. You all paid for that.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.